3 days ago, I decided to go ahead and give mob grazing a try here on my ranch. And now that those first 3 days have passed, it's time to make the first pasture move out here. Although I have not been at this very long, the last 3 days have taught me a few things. We're gonna talk about that a little bit later. But first, these cows are getting a little bit impatient. I think I need to open up this gate and put them into their new pasture. That's what's going on today on Farmer Tyler Ranch. That was actually kind of funny because when I opened the gate for them, they're so used to grazing this as one pasture that they figured that, you know, today was the day I was supposed to move them, that they were going to go into the next pasture that they're used to going into. It took them a while to realize that I had just opened up a few more acres of fresh grass for them back here, but now looks like they pretty well got that figured out and they're starting to settle down. The cows have been plenty busy out here the last 3 days, and in fact, let me show you the difference between the grass that they've been on and the grass that they just walked into. That's a pretty good example of where they've been. I mean, this stuff can't get picked down much shorter. It's probably honestly a little bit overgrazed. And this right here is what they're going into, so you can see looks a little bit nicer. Somebody's working late. In fact, before I run out of daylight, I want to get the drone up in the air, and I have a feeling that the above ground view is really going to tell a lot more than me just sticking the camera down here in the grass. So let's do that. I think that 3 days was pretty good for this size pasture that I got fenced off here. When they went in there, it really wasn't as stocked up as I would have liked it to be. So I'm hoping that after they go through the rest of the ranch, when they finally do get back over here, that we'll have a little bit more feed stockpiled than we did the first time, and it'll look a little bit better than it does now because they've got it picked down pretty low. My goal is to get the water on here as fast as I can, and I think I am going to try to aerate these pastures too. Probably the two biggest things that I learned in this first little dipping my toe into this experiment is, number one, a lot of people ask me if the calves would be able to duck under that single wire, and of course the answer is yes, they are able to do that. I think I might have had my first wire that I put up here just a little bit too high, and it was just a little bit too easy for them to duck under there. So my new wire that I put up here is a little bit lower. Hopefully that'll slow them down a little bit. But honestly, as long as they can find their way back in there, it doesn't really bother me if the calves kind of come and go into the different pastures. It's just when they can't find their way back in, or when they're not willing to touch the wire to get back in. The other thing that I did not think about when I started dividing up this back pasture was that, you know, we're about to come into a heat wave here, and there is no shade out here for these cows. So I had to make some last minute adjustments, and change this hot wire so that they could get up into the main corral where there was some shade. That just really couldn't be avoided, in my opinion, because it's not right to make them stay out here in this field where there is no shade for them when the weather's going to be that hot. I thought about feed, I thought about water, I just totally blanked on the shade, but I got that figured out now. With the exception of the calves, the single wire hot wire has actually worked really well. I haven't had any cows get through, and that was really more what I was worried about. So it has worked really good for that. I think that on my tester I'm getting about 6,000 volts in that wire. So you got to figure a cow, she's got 4 feet, so she's got 4 ground rods hitting the ground, and that wet nose is a great conductor. So all they have to do is touch it with their nose once, and that's probably going to be the end of that. There's really not too much else to report out here. I want to make sure that I get plenty of documentation of what this grass looks like, because it'll be really interesting to see in around 11 or 12 days when they come back in here what it looks like. Now, I know that 11 or 12 days doesn't sound like a really long recovery time to most of you, but you got to consider that in the past, this pasture only ever got 7 days to recover. So we have almost doubled the time that it gets to recover. And this is a very fast growing warm season grass. Mostly what's growing out here is Dallas grass. It should look pretty good by the time they get back in here. It's Tuesday evening as I'm filming this, and if I got my calculations right, these cows are on about 3 new acres right now, and they will move in 2 days on Thursday night. So they're not going to be out here for as long as they were in the first block, and I'm really hoping that those short graze periods are really gonna show some good dividends on the other end when we come back through here. The graze and rest period is really only one part of this equation, though. I need to get water on this grass, I think, as fast as possible to give it the maximum amount of time to recover. But before I can start the water out here, I need to get this aerated. So I got about 6 acres here, and I think I can get that done tonight, but I'm not gonna get it done if I keep talking, so let's go hook up the aerator and get going. All right, well, it's actually a couple days later now. Just got too dark to film any of the aeration or the water or anything like that. So it's a couple days later, and as luck would have it, I have to do all the same things over again. So if any of you guys are wondering how it just magically got more sunny out here, that's why. Let's get these cows moved into their new pasture and get the aerator fired up so I can get my water going. This pasture move is probably the easiest one that I'm going to have back here, because all I need to do is roll this wire up here and then run it straight back to that east fence. But before I do that, obviously I have to get all the cows in here first. So I'm going to try to do this with the wire live, just because I really don't feel like running down there and disabling it. So hopefully I don't shock myself, but it wouldn't be the first time, and quite honestly, it's not going to be the last time. You're just a baby, aren't you? You're just a baby. I just want to see if I can explain this a little bit better. I know I just kind of take a lot for granted of what's going to make sense because I know the layout here, but for those of you guys that have never been out here, which is most of you, it might not be so obvious. So originally I had this wire, and I know the sun's going to be shining right in your face, but this wire went all the way down to the back or the west end of the pasture, up to this T-post, and then back over to that fence. So now I've unhooked it from that fence, and we just need to swing it around and put it straight into this east fence, and that way they will still have access to their water, mineral, and they'll be able to get into their shade. You guys might be able to notice that I've got this wire sort of going at an angle back over to that fence, and there's really no special reason for that other than I want it to pull it that way so that it pulls away from this T-post. Obviously I don't want the wire touching the T-post so it doesn't ground out, but now I have got my 5 checks here that will be cow free, so I can go ahead and fire up that aerator, get all these aerated, start the water, and we'll do it all over again in a couple days. This is the aerator that I use out here. It's a little airway. It only makes an 8-foot swath, so we're definitely not covering acres very quick with this thing. But fortunately, I don't have to do it all that often. Regular viewers from the channel will remember that I tried an experiment with this thing a couple of years ago in which I aerated all these pastures in the fall and was hoping that that would lead to greater spring growth. I didn't see awesome results with doing it that way, but still I would say they were kind of, I guess we'll say, inconclusive. So what I want to do with this thing is experiment a little bit more with it and see if maybe doing applications in the summertime might be a little bit more beneficial. When I ran this in the fall, I put these gangs on the aerator at their maximum angle. You can actually move these things back and forth to adjust sort of the level of cut that you're going to have with the tines. Now, because back then when I was doing it, I was kind of trying to disturb the ground a little bit more, thinking that would give me greater results. That's what I did. But now that we're gonna have animals walking around out here and I'm gonna be irrigating, I don't wanna damage the roots of the grass that's already out here. So I've got these just on a straight cut or a 0-degree angle, and hopefully, the idea anyway, is that those are just going to punch a bunch of holes in the ground, and when I do flood this with water to irrigate, it'll allow that water to seep down a little bit deeper and maybe even allow the soil to hold on to the water a little bit longer, and I'm hoping help the grass grow a little bit more, but we'll just have to kind of see on that. Let's get down on the ground and take a closer look at what the aerator's doing. We get down close, you can kind of see where it's punching all the little holes in the ground. And if I stick my knife in there, you can see that we're getting a good, I don't know, I can't bottom the knife out there, but it's a good 4 inches, I'd say. When I'm finished with this, essentially what I'm gonna have is thousands, possibly millions of these little holes everywhere out here. And each one of those holes has to be filled up with water as the water scoots down the field. That should give the roots access to water, and it should make the ground hold on to the water longer. Thanks for hanging out at the ranch with me today, guys, and I hope I'll see you again on Farmer Tyler Ranch.